A new analysis from Public Employees for Environmental Responsibility, or PEER, found that DOGE wasted $10 billion on paid leave, or rather, they were paying workers $10 billion to stay home. So in 2025, when DOGE was assaulting various branches of our government, it's estimated that roughly 7% of the federal civilian labor force, or roughly 154,000 employees, were put on paid leave. In other words, the American people were still paying their salaries, but we weren't getting any of the work that they were doing in exchange for it anymore. So spending over $10 billion of taxpayer money to prevent people from working is a hell of a way to run a railroad, said PEER senior counsel Peter Jenkins. Ironically, this outrageous waste of human capital when key federal agencies such as the National Park Service were horribly understaffed was done in the name of government efficiency. And yeah, that is the irony of all of this. And of course, this isn't just a giant waste of money, but it is also, legally dubious, as you could imagine. The Administrative Leave Act, or the ALA, was passed by Congress in 2016, and it says that paid leave can only be imposed for a maximum of 10 workdays per year. Trump violated the ALA when DOGE went in, but accountability, you'll be surprised to find, may be hard to come by. It would involve, ironically, navigating a lot of bureaucracy, which is, I thought that's what DOGE wanted to get rid of. And ultimately, the case would have to contend with the Trump-controlled Justice Department. For one, the regulatory rules of the ALA were never implemented by the first Trump administration, nor by the Biden administration. They didn't actually go into effect until September of last year. And on top of that, Trump, we know, loves a good loophole. So the Trump administration carved out several separate classifications of paid leave and claimed the ALA 10-day rule only applies to what it calls investigative paid leave, Materna said, but the provision does not apply to the various other types of paid leave the administration has created. And Materna, who was quoted there, is Madeline Materna. She's a Stanford University doctoral student in comparative science, and she has been studying this issue. But moving forward, PEER has filed an administrative complaint before the US Office of Special Counsel. If that office finds wrongdoing, the cases could be taken before a little-known office called the Merit Systems Protection Board. It has authority to take action, but Roosh says it hears cases involving termination, demotion, or suspension without pay for 2 weeks. It may not have the jurisdiction over paid leave cases. However, very conveniently, notably, the Trump administration fired all the Democrats on the board, which has left it without quorum. So, the irony here is it's so blatant that you can, I don't even have to point it out. The biggest and most obvious one is that DOGE was mad about government inefficiency in the first place, but then they specifically were trying to make the case that most of these government workers just sit around all day getting paid to do nothing, and then they paid them to do nothing. They sent them home. What do you make of that?
DOGE being a scam. I mean, yeah.
Who could have seen it coming?
Who could have seen it coming? It only took about 3 weeks into that whole thing, that debacle, fiasco, to see that Elon Musk just wasn't serious, especially when you consider the biggest line item on in the government budget is the defense budget, which was $1 trillion last I checked, and also has never passed an audit. Like, this is the most wasteful part of the government by a million. And all you have to do, Yasmin, is go to where? Northern Virginia, Maryland, in and around DC, the richest area of the country. Why? Because there's a bunch of these defense contractors getting fat on the government. Like, this is literally what they do. And this idea that DOGE was gonna make the government more lean and efficient while never even touching any of that just showed you that they were never serious. It was always a joke. And this whole premise of like paid leave and we're paying people to quit and that kind of thing was always very wasteful and stupid. The idea that they did that, then had to rehire a bunch of people for key government roles, as if like all of these jobs within the government is just fake and people are just lazy and stupid. It was always just kind of ridiculous. And again, it was basically skin deep. And the last thing I'll say is, I think broadly there is an appetite of Americans for the government to be more efficient, to be less wasteful in its spending. I just don't think we'll ever actually get that because again, the places that we put the most of our government resources are untouchable.
Don't forget, Noble Mobile saving you a ton of money. So a lot of people are signing up now and beginning to realize, what the hell, why am I paying so much to Verizon and AT&T? So your bill's only $50 a month, but it can actually be less because they give you money back if you don't use your data. So if you're paying more than $50, there's no reason to not switch. It's crazy not to switch because same phone, same number, same contacts, literally nothing changes. TYT.com/switch, TYT.com/switch. All right, we'll be right back.
Yeah, and I think that's why they were so successful in selling DOGE to the American people, because who doesn't want a more efficient government? Who doesn't want more efficiency? That's the one aspect of running a country like a business that is attractive to, for example, me, or I think generally people on the left. I don't think the country should be run like a business because businesses are all about profit. But if we can find ways to make it more efficient, then, who's going to be mad about that? But DOGE was never about government efficiency. That's just the PR aspect of what they were trying to do. We know that they went in there, they dismantled half of our government, they sent half of our government employees home without pay, get some with pay, and they also, sent all of our personal data around the world to God knows who and where. So here's
the thing. Yaz, and I'm glad you said what you just said. Mm-hmm. As a leftist, it's in our interest to see government run efficiently. Mm-hmm. Government programs don't have fraud and waste because when they do, it erodes trust in those institutions. And it's our belief that government institutions can be ran for and of the benefit of the people. And so it's in our best interest for the government to not be wasting money. But like the idea that Elon Musk, another person who's on the government dole, the idea that he's gonna go in there, like the conflict of interest that create in and of itself, that he would be the one to go in there and quote unquote clean it up was always laughable.
Yeah, politics is really just about taxes and who's gonna spend the money where and who's gonna spend it better, right? That's why we have political systems.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.